people out there, friends, supporters, tribe members, fellow travelers. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Norman Woods. In the music community, also known as Inside the Healer, I am a jazz poet. I'd like to introduce you to an off the cuff, organic, non scripted, non rehearsed edition of Word Stories. Word Stories, where does that concept come from? Says what it says, words and stories. As a poet, we have writing styles for haikus and sonnets and short story dramatic styles that we are taught in school, but this project is not about that. This is about soul dialogue, the unedited internal version of how one may feel in dealing with life on life's terms and not being constricted or expected to stay within the bounds of a style, because in my experience, what that does is that hinders the expression of the true emotion that one is trying to get to and get out. 5 years ago, I lost my son to an overdose of fentanyl, and what it did is it destroyed every creative part of me, every part of my expression or desire to be artistic. I have no idea why. I wasn't able to conceptualize why. But one of the most devastating things that one can go through as a parent is the loss of a child. There are other things in life that are devastating as well. But in this particular experience, I'm not really coming to you sharing this project as Inside the Jazz Poet, but as Norman Woods, the father who is trying to come to terms and find balance with grief. So I decided to do this project because I felt that there had to be another perspective that could coexist in the grieving process beside loss. Because when we hear about grief, we always hear about what was lost. Not that there's something gained, but there is a relative balance that one must learn to come to terms with to stay functional and try to have a loving memory that highlights the significance of the relationship between a father and a child or a dear one, because it's the memory that savors the love, that makes sure that the love is not lost and gone. So, the background of how this came about, I will, first of all, thank you for those who endure and choose to give their time to listen to this. I hadn't written anything in 5 years. I just didn't have it in me. Just half of my heart was gone. So I had no idea why. And then I lost my keyboard player for my group Inside the Tribe and my drummer. But after dealing with the grief of losing my son and not being able to find my footage, I just really didn't have any way or which way or know which way to go. I was in grief counseling for a long time, keeping that balance again. But as one says and one realizes, there is no predetermined script in the grieving process for every individual to say this is what it's about, this is how you deal with it. Every situation is unique. So what happened is over a period of time, I stayed functional, internally broken but functional. And I am a jeweler and I sell jewelry. And so one day I was listening to some music and I heard this artist by the name of Hiroka Wanatabe, whose musical group is called Replus, and there was a song called Solitude, and I just broke out into tears. I don't know why. I broke out into tears. And then 4 days after, I called it Shalimar Song. My son's name was Shalimar Alexander Woods, and I called it Shalimar Song. So every time I heard this song, I considered it being my son saying hello to me or hi to me or something to remind me of the challenging moment I might have been in at that particular time. So surviving and being lifted and touched by the melodies in this song, it finally came to me that it was time to try to write something. I had been doing internal work with chakras, the seven chakras, the energy point where life force energy comes in, leaves you. I had struggled trying to put grief into a perspective, and my head was just so full of ideas and no experience and what I should do, what I shouldn't do. So I did this chakra work and realized that I was suffering an extreme amount of blockage in my crown chakra. So through meditation, work, exercises, all the kind of things that one could acquire to help them release a blockage or break through a blockage, I tried. And about a month later, with the commitment to free myself up, to develop a higher level of acceptance, I wrote the poem for the first time in 5 years called The Crown. And The Crown is me paying tribute to the life-saving, life-affirming, movement-affirming results of cleaning my throat, my crown chakra. So the poem's called The Crown. After that, I still didn't think, oh, now I'm broken the barrier, I can start writing again. It wasn't that at all. I just sat and I sat in what it meant to express the gratitude for movement. And then with the contemplation of now achieving movement, I start thinking the next thing of who what is this gonna what is this gonna produce? Who am I gonna become as a result of this movement that I've created? Which gave birth to the next poem called What Can I Do? Who Can I Be? That was the second poem. After sitting with these pieces, once again, not saying this was the reemergence of me as an artist, but through the affirmation and the commitment to heal or find balance in my grief as a father. That was the goal, and that's what the journey's been about. So I was ready to write the poem for my son, which I won't tell you the title of because I am recording it tomorrow. So today, if I'm going to talk about the return of the poet inside, I can't talk about the return without talking about the beginning. And so I need to acknowledge some people that were very instrumental in giving birth to my creative existence and my creative vision and my creative voice that were very instrumental that are no longer with us. The first person I need to acknowledge is my pianist, Cy Perkoff. He was really instrumental at the beginning at giving my poetry its voice. And not only was he a mentor, a band member, a jazz mentor, but he was also a friend, someone who believed in me. I'm doing this organically outside, so you just have to ignore the car noises. And I got to keep it pushing because I don't do script, I do in the moment. But Cy Perkoff was very significant. He passed away, and along with my own creative spirit, the loss of him was also a devastating part of my loss as well. Another individual that I want to always remember is Royal Kent, who was a member of the group Copus. He was a poet who I used to see at the International Cafe in San Francisco. And I used to watch him, and I drew from him the courage to express what was going on inside that he wanted to express. And I would sit there and go, I could do that. I think I could do that. And the third person that I lost just recently was my drummer, Ajitan, who I call Steady Eddie. And watching him play the drums and watching him just find what fit the moment was very, very instrumental at me doing the same thing as well. I never thought about if I did the words right or anything. I just kind of went with the groove that was laid down by these fabulous musicians and these fabulous artists. Now, there are a lot of people that have played with me, but three people believed in me. Two other people that are still with me, but I should acknowledge them because they are connected to the heart, and they are people who believed in me, was Mark Wright, always ready to play with me anytime I called, and the person who really, really enriched the passion of what I do after Cy was Keith Saunders, another piano player. So those are the 5 people that are so instrumental that I can't go without mentioning anytime I do anything that has to do with inside. Cy Perkoff, Royal Kent, drummer Ajitan, Mark Wright, and Keith Saunders. They believed in me, and it's so important to have that. So today, Jazz Poet Inside will be taking you on this journey. Yesterday it was Norman, the father. Today it's the return of Inside the Healer, verbal ambassador of soul dialogue, and life committed harvester of hope. So I hope you enjoy the journey. It's going to be what it's going to be. So let's see what happens. Let's start this recording session. I'm kind of excited because I talked about the past for me as a jazz poet. Now, I didn't talk about where I'm at right now. And like I said, I don't really think that this is going to be a music industry retail type of product. This is strictly for the encouragement and empowerment of bringing balance to grief. So there's a couple of artists, as I mentioned yesterday, that were very instrumental at starting this process. And I had mentioned Hiroki Wanatabe, who is also known as Replus. The song Solitude and Rebirth, which I mentioned yesterday, always brings me back to the heart and the memory of my son. But the one that really told me that it was time to do this was a couple of pieces by a LA-based hip-hop artist by the name of Jordan Reddington, known as Lakey Inspired. And even though he might be considered a hip-hop producer, I detected passion, and that's what lifted me and said, I got to do this. So I hope that what I feel and sense inside about this selection not only brings it more out of me with the passion that his music makes me feel, and that I compliment such beautiful production and beautiful work. And I hope you like it. Thanks again for creating such a beautiful body of work.